So we're recording. This is Tree Commission. We've got Kippy Laughlin, Morgan Drabick Hamchair, John Parker, Nate Leimeister, Commissioner Waddington, Scott Cromer, I'm Elizabeth, and then we also have our new law director, Stuart Hastings, visiting.
Okay, as far as, okay, roll call. Do we approve the reading of the minutes? I'll go ahead of myself there. Did we get minutes from,
They were attached to the message.
I somehow missed the minutes.
And this is the minutes from last November, correct? Or
We didn't do
December?
minutes, that was not, it wasn't a
Oh,
public
that's right,
meeting.
correct.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
the September. I can resend
Okay.
it, we can do it at the,
I probably have the September ones then. Okay. We need to appoint or affirm the chair and vice chair. How do we proceed with?
I think that's really up to you guys. You can keep it casual, as long as you're happy being chair. I think that's worked nicely, and Kippy was vice
Sure.
chair last time.
I think it's fine the way it is, Ron.
Okay.
Someone should make a motion.
Motion to approve the chair and vice chair?
So moved. Someone second.
Oh, it's got to be on the members.
Okay, well.
Second?
Even someone who is the vice chair?
It's a good question.
Can Kippy do
We're a
a
little
second?
more informal. on this one.
I don't think. Vote for yourself.
We're allowed to vote
for yourself?
Yes, then.
Motion is carried, if that's the right wording. Okay, we approve the minutes from September. Old business, our 2023 tree stats.
Okay, I'll read the tree stats, and then I'll talk about what we've done so far this year. So for 2023, we had 283 removals, 337 stump removals, 138 limb ups, 63 complete trims, 188 trees that we young tree trained, 5 trees that we just did deadwood, 224 inspections. Storm cleanups, we had 126 that we made it out to. We planted 147 trees, and we had 1,400 times where we were watering the new trees that we planted. So for this year so far, we've done 30 removals, and it's mainly been in the Meadowwood sidewalk project. They're putting some new sidewalks in over there, and there was some old pear trees that were right where the sidewalk was going, so we had to take those out. Trees trimmed, we've done 81 limb ups, and most of that has been for the 24 road resurfacing projects that we're gonna have happen this year. Only one complete trim as of right now, and 264 young tree training. So most of January and February, we've been focused on the young tree training and the limb ups, and we're pretty much done with the young tree training that we're gonna do for this time of year. We'll continue it in the fall, but we're gonna start doing a lot of the trims that are on workforce, the complete trims that we got asked to do. We've had 20 inspections so far this year, and just a couple storm cleanup items where there was some high winds and some branches broke out and whatnot. Right now, I'm also putting together the tree planting list, and for this spring, we should have about 100 trees that we're gonna plant. And that's pretty much all I got for right now.
And so the only time you guys do the planting is in the spring?
No, we'll be doing a fall planting also. I just haven't looked that far ahead yet to know how many and where, but it'll, approximately 30, 40 we'll do in the fall to add. So we're hoping to get 150 or so this year to plant, so.
So we're looking at 100 for the spring.
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for.
Okay.
Yes.
And that should kind of match the amount of removals. the
We're getting a
200.
lot closer, yes. So I truly believe that the removals will be down this year, that we won't be where we've been in the past, so.
Are the new ones in new places, or are they replacing old?
Some are in new places. Most are replacing areas that are open and in need of tree canopy. We're trying to group them together in groups. So there's a lot of blocks where there's 6 or 7 trees I can plant in one block. So we're trying to take those areas up first. And then anybody that requested, we try to coordinate and try to plant, the whole block together when somebody requests on the block.
Okay. Sounds good.
What's the difference between a limb up and a complete trim?
So the limb ups we're doing, we want to make sure that there's an assured height clearance, so vehicles can get under them. So for the road resurfacing, we focus on those areas to do the limb ups, and we try to get through there quick and just, limb up them bottom limbs. So there's clearance for, the big trucks that got to go through and the grinding machines. And then a complete trim, we're spending a lot more time on that. And, trimming the whole tree, making sure it's clear to the house, clear to the road, getting any crossing branches removed. And, that's what we do for the complete trim, which is a little different than the young tree training. The young tree training is, we're focusing on that a lot because the trees are, under 20 years old, and they're easier to train them that way, to get them the way we want. So we don't have to do limb ups in the future. The tree's already at the, the bottom branches are at the right height, and the tree's in good shape, so.
Anything else under old business?
The utility companies are still doing a lot of these trims around the power lines, correct? Or are you guys doing a lot of that too?
I think we're gonna talk about that in new business, the Omni fiber installation. So I think Scott's gonna bring that up and talk about that, if we wanna save that for the new business.
Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to new business. And the Omni people are everywhere, so what's happening?
They are, were you, Kippy, were you talking about like the power company coming in and trimming or
Yeah, not the Omni.
like the Omni? So they still have, they still go in and trim trees and limb them away from the power lines to ensure that, there's reliability on the power. So they're still doing that. I don't know that they're doing right now. We haven't been updated with a map yet of what they're projected to do in the next year or two, but yeah, they still do it routinely throughout the city.
Yeah, they just went through last year, so I think it's like a 3 to 4 year cycle.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
for the power line company, they won't be coming through, but the
No.
Omni's been through and they've been doing.
Sure. And so the last time that the power company did it is when that gentleman came in here and spoke with us and.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any opinion as far as the V shape, they got the whole center of the tree out? I know in my neighborhood, in my street, I see a lot of it too in that end. Does that affect the trees anyway as far as,
It does. They have to do it that way because the power line's there and they can't let the tree get into the power lines because it's dangerous. So they're doing the best that they can with what's available, like the tree that's there. So what we're trying to do is to plant a better species tree in those locations, something that doesn't get as tall and get up in the power lines. So that way it doesn't get, butchered like that.
yeah,
That's,
they just look, is that a limit, cause the tree to die in some cases?
so when it's like that and there's no shade in the center above the power lines, it causes sun scalding. So the sun's beating down on those branches, and the branches are used to having leaves cover it, and sun scalding, what's the word I'm looking for? The branch kind of deteriorates because the sun's on it so intensely, so.
It'll rot
Yeah,
and
okay.
water will get in there, rainwater.
Yeah, and a lot of suckers come up when they do it
Yeah, I've
because.
seen that, yeah.
Yeah, so,
It's not pretty.
no, not at all. It's just gonna take us time to slowly change, the different trees, the right tree in that spot. We can't do it all at once. We just gotta be patient and keep plugging away at it and try to do the right thing,
Do
so.
we still have a lot of buckeye trees out in the Boulevard area of the city?
We got a lot of horse chestnut, which are just like the buckeye tree, and yeah, we don't plant many more, but we are keeping the ones that we got, and,
Right.
if they're hazardous, then we take them down, and
So on the Omni part, so just wanted to update everybody. We have been working with Omni's subcontractors that do overhead wire installation. Staff has seen a lot of like bad habits that they've been doing. We've gotten service calls on whether they break limbs out or they really aren't pruning properly. So we've been kind of monitoring it, and in a couple cases, we saw where they've actually used bucket trucks and like broke limbs and not trimmed them out. So we're working with them to hire a licensed contractor to come in and properly prune the trees where they broke them out. So if you guys do see it, or you guys get approached by residents or citizens, let us know, and we can address it, as they come up. But we have been trying to address it as much as we can, and just really city staff, and other divisions and us, when we're driving around, kind of keep an eye on it, so.
Have you had many complaints?
We've probably had a dozen, and then there's one area there on Monroe where they beat them up pretty good. They were the flowering pear trees that aren't the best trees, and
Right.
we're slowly, removing them as needed, but as long as they're still healthy, it's a tree and it's good, shade, and we want to keep them as long as we can,
Sure.
so. We are working with them to come in and properly prune those trees and not just, break them out. That's not our goal, so.
What about the gas installation? That's happening all over the place. So they're
Ga-
destroying some roots and stuff. too.
Gases, we're working with the gas company along with another subcontractor of Omni that's installing like little, I would call them little junction boxes in the boulevards. And yes, we're trying to keep a safe distance away from the root system. Rule of thumb, we're trying to keep it 10 foot. They have been encroaching in that from time to time. I would say quite often, or more than we'd like to see. So we're working with them to make sure that they stay at a distance if we can. We've been having routine meetings with them, but they're not always forthcoming with information and exact locations where they're going to be, and they've been saying like they're adhering to our requests, but they're not always doing that. So that's where we've got to be vigilant, and when we see them, to stop and talk to them and make sure they're not damaging the tree, so. It's been a challenge,
I bet.
It's been
You
a
got
challenge.
several things going on that are disruptive.
yeah.
Can you give them, like this company, like a black mark or something so that future people that work with them know
So
this behavior?
they make out, or they do a right-of-way request permit, and then it goes through our Public Works Engineering Department, and we usually sit down, and we did with Omni because it was such large scale. And we've tried to, check all the boxes to ensure that they're not going to do it, and they've, we had good reception to, okay, they're not going to do it, but then, they have a lot of staff out there, and reading, I'm assuming they're reading the prints maybe correctly or incorrectly and kind of pushing the envelope into installing it quickly. So yes, they do take a bond out, and there are, things that we can go back on them for. But unfortunately, when they get all this in, like we've had internal discussions, like once they install it, I don't think we're going to see them too much after that. So yes, if we do, we could definitely make sure we, put things in place so to kind of safe mark what they're going to do and how we react to it. But right now, we're kind of just working through it. Kind of a mad rush to get it all installed is what it is, and there's quite a few of them out there, so. That's all I have on the Omni thing. If you guys got any more questions or.
I had a question on Butler. I saw you planted a couple trees in the boulevard.
Yes, that was a project, and there were a few trees planted within that
There gonna be some Sort
project.
of canopy, or are they just small?
Nate actually was brought in on that and picked out the species, and they're more, I'll let you speak if you, to the species, but they are more, they're not
They're
big
not-
canopies.
No, they're a narrow, it's a ginkgo, the Princeton century tree. It stays pretty narrow. It's going to be a tough location for
Yeah, it
those
is,
trees. I mean, we're seeing that already with, people kind of driving right through the ditch and whatnot, so,
There's a learning curve on,
yeah.
yeah.
I think
Still
we,
trying to figure out the single lane coming in, and
right.
so
I think
how that's gonna
I mean, we
work.
wanted it in there because it drains to the center. They're salt tolerant, I think.
Yeah, makes
I mean, we
sense,
looked at all
yeah.
that. It'd be nice to get them established and get them
Mm-hmm.
growing and have them there, but we didn't want it to be a, if we had high winds or whatever, to shut down Cedar Point's main way in. So, yeah, we wanted something small, but looks good.
Looks
so,
good,
Yeah.
okay.
Do ginkgo leaves, whenever they, I'm a birder, I'm going to say molt, but whenever they, fall off in the fall, because they're so thick, does that cause any trouble with, like stormwater retention or just cleaning up?
So we've used the ginkgo tree in other places in the city, and I can say that we really haven't had a big issue, not that I've heard of. So I'm going to say no, but I mean, it could be a possibility.
I don't see it as a potential conflict. I mean, we do run our sweeper down there quite often to keep it clean, and then with the wind and everything, they kind of disperse. And the sewer's pretty good size there. That'll be taking them, so I don't think it'll be really an issue.
Anything else under new business? Is anything going on with Arbor Day? Any
Yes.
any thoughts?
Yeah, so we're going to mix things up again this year with scheduling, and in March, because, we have to meet our 6 meeting requirement still for Tree City USA. So in March, we were thinking of doing a planning session for public outreach, so we can talk more about Arbor Day. I do know that the Erie County Senior Center wants to see you all again this year, but we also have some ideas on how to incorporate the schools, possibly in Huron Park, so we can talk more about planning of that event in the March meeting.
Yeah, yep, that was our plan, was to talk more on the March.
Planning in
Yeah.
March, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
That's part of the Arbor Day,
yes,
what we need.
for
okay.
April, yeah.
Yeah.
There's locations in Huron Park, and it's another nice location because you've got the Monroe Prep School, and then you've got the regional center here at Adams School. So you could potentially have 2 schools show up for that event. So we would just have to carefully plan around school schedules, and the Erie County Senior Center wants to do the noon lunch as well. So yeah,
So is it on the, going to be on Arbor Day?
Yeah, I think it's Friday, the 26th.
26th.
I can put a hold on your calendar too. I know I put something on staff calendar, but I'm guessing that they'll all likely be sometime between like 9 AM and ending at 1 PM
Okay.
on that day. So there's that for our March meeting. In May, Nate's going to do a workshop with you all for his strategic forestry plan and his master tree planting plan. We're hoping to do Touch a Truck again in August.
Right.
And that's pretty much like the first half of the year. We can go from there.
So just quickly, are you saying that we would do both events? We would do the nursing or the retirement center and then do the schools?
Yes, and it's just figuring out between the schools what they'd prefer as far as timing. I know the senior center wants to do noon because they have like a set lunch that they do for the community. So just kind of hoping to coordinate the schools either before lunch or after lunch. And then hoping the weather stays nice because that was kind of a bummer. Last year, we couldn't
year
do the
rained
school
like-
portion.
All day.
All day.
It was bad. It was a rainy day. So it was nice to have, it's actually nice to have that, like safeguard
Indoors,
with the
Yeah,
senior center,
Senior
because we
center,
do have to
yeah.
fulfill that Arbor Day requirement too for Tree City USA. So,
For the future tree planting meeting, I was just thinking about the number of trees that were removed because of storm damage. And I don't know what this area, what the climate scenarios are showing under climate change, how many more intense rainfall events we're going to get here. But I was wondering if that, are you taking that into consideration of perhaps planting trees that are more resilient to these extreme weather events?
So I do try to factor in like all kinds of different factors when I'm selecting trees. And I don't like doing storm damaged trees. So I try to, pick the hardiest tree that we can and have it fit in the boulevard space and still get diversity. So I take all that into consideration. So yes, and I've done some reading about, climate change and how it might affect, different species and whatnot. So I can't say I'm an expert on it, but I do try to factor it in.
What species are most affected?
They're saying that like the thing that might change the most is the cold hardiness scale. So that's kind of, one of the factors that I'm looking at. I don't know, like all of them are going to be affected because.
I think the biggest factor in the intense storm, if you're talking winds or you're talking rain, is a good trim program. If you're trimming trees, circuit trimming trees, and thinning them out, the wind blows through them. If the wind's blowing through them, even if you have wet soil, it's not going to grab it like a kite and pull it over. You're getting good flow through it. So I think that's where we've come into a lot of the storm damages. In years past where we didn't have the budget or the staff, we did a lot of limb ups and we did removals, but we didn't have a good trim program. We didn't have a good young tree training program. So I think we're not going to see it now, but in years to come, when we start trimming these and the young tree training, I think we're going to see less of that storm damage because, you've got a better tree and a healthier tree, and the wind's going to be blowing through it, not grabbing it and pulling it down. So, I think they're both work together there, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, if I could, who did the willows? They really cut them back.
That's, shoot, yeah, it's a Buckeye?
Association do it, but I
No.
mean, they cut them back that far?
Cedar Point does it.
Okay.
Yep, they take care of the road, so
I thought it was really cut back. I
that,
can't remember.
they look horrible.
do they grow back quickly?
Though
Is
they
that-
grow back.
Willows grow back
They
pretty
grow back
quickly.
quick.
and There's a couple down, with the winds, speaking of winds, you know, some been there a long time, and then, you know, some of them, they don't keep up with the suckers on them either, but
Right.
but they have trimmed them back too far. There's talk about them doing something with that road and maybe taking the willows out, but nobody's too happy about that. But, so there is talk of making some changes there, but I'm not sure where it is right now, but you're right, they're pretty hacked up. But the willows do, unfortunately, they come back pretty
They
quick.
come back pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
Like 20 years ago, they took a lot of them down and then replanted them, and they've,
Yeah,
they do look good. I like how they,
yeah.
the look
And
of
they're
them.
it's like the tunnel at night.
Yeah.
It's fun, it's nice. So hopefully they'll keep it. Between that and widening the causeway, we'll see. Anything else under new business? Our next meeting is March.
It is in March, the third Tuesday in March. I'm sorry I didn't put it down, but I
It's
will
like the-
update everybody.
It's the 21st, I think, somewhere in there.
That sounds right,
I was doing the calendar today. and
4
that's
PM.
Here.
We're gonna
No,
meet at
we're
the
out there.
forestry
We're
shop,
out at the-
yeah.
We'll be at the
Forestry
forestry
shop.
Yeah, and I will update everybody, because,
Okay.
yeah, I think when I first sent stuff out, we weren't sure.
Okay. And we're out there in the fall, I think, too, right? September? Out the
Yeah.
forestry.
Yep, and we're gonna do in May, because we decided to move up Nate's strategic plan. That's, we were gonna do in September.
Okay,
We're gonna move it up
okay.
to May, so, to get it's ready essentially for your
Okay.
review, so. So, yeah.
Anything else?